All right, let's dive into a bit of a scientific detective story. We're going to investigate a really mysterious and pretty deadly virus that's lurking in the forests of South Asia. It's a threat that first made itself known in a very alarming way, through a wave of dying monkeys. So let's get into it and uncover the mystery of what's known as monkey fever.
So that's our central question, right? What exactly is this monkey fever? Where on earth did it come from? How is it spreading? And maybe most importantly, why is it so darn hard to stop, even when we have a vaccine? Let's start peeling back the layers. Our story kicks off not in some high-tech lab, but deep inside a forest, with a strange outbreak that had everyone from local villagers to top scientists completely baffled.
Okay, so picture this. The year is 1957. We're in the Kyasanur Forest in Karnataka, India. People in the local villages start getting really sick with this intense, high fever illness. But at the exact same time, something really strange and unsettling is happening up in the trees. Monkeys are literally falling out of them, dead. This eerie link was the very first clue that something new, something unknown, was out there.
And the disease itself is just brutal. It usually hits in two phases. Phase 1 is this sudden explosion of high fever, chills, and just awful muscle pain. But for some people, it gets worse. It can move into a second, much more dangerous phase. We're talking about hemorrhagic symptoms, bleeding from the nose and gums, or even really severe neurological problems that can lead to confusion, seizures, or even a coma.
Now, most people do recover, but the case fatality rate is somewhere between 3 and 10%. That's not a number you can ignore. And even if you survive, the recovery can take forever, with people feeling weak for a long, long time. So this isn't just some flu. This is a serious, serious threat. So what in the world was causing it? Well, scientists jumped on it pretty quickly, and they found the culprit. And what they uncovered was its incredibly complex way of spreading, a kind of secret cycle hidden right there in the forest ecosystem.
So meet our villain, the Kyasanur Forest Disease Virus, or KFDV for short. It's part of the Flavivirus family, which is basically a rogues gallery of nasty viruses you've definitely heard of. Think dengue, Zika, and tick-borne encephalitis. And just like its infamous relatives, KFDV is spread by ticks, and it packs a serious punch.
So how does this virus actually stay alive? Well, that's what's so fascinating. It's all part of this cycle. It kicks off with infected ticks, which hang out on small mammals, like rodents. Then, those ticks bite monkeys. The monkeys get super sick, and they act as amplifiers for the virus, infecting even more ticks that feed on them. And humans? Well, we're just the accidental victims. We wander into the forest for work or to gather wood, get bitten by one of these infected ticks, and that's it. We're in the cycle. And this right here is an absolutely crucial point to understand. Unlike something like the flu or COVID, you can't catch KFED from another person. Humans are what scientists call dead-end hosts. We get sick, yeah, but we don't pass the virus on to anyone else. The whole thing depends entirely on that tiny little vector, the forest tick.
So, what started as this localized mystery in one little patch of forest, well, it didn't stay there. Over the decades, monkey fever has been slowly but surely on the move, becoming a much bigger regional problem.
Just look at this timeline. You can see this slow, steady creep. It started in Karnataka in '57. Decades later, by the '90s, it pops up in Goa. Then the 2000s, it's in Kerala. The 2010s, it reaches Maharashtra. And this isn't just ancient history. Just in early 2024, Karnataka reported 53 cases and, tragically, 2 deaths. This thing is still a very active threat.
And as researchers point out, this isn't just a few random outbreaks. It's a sign that the virus has the real potential to set up shop in new areas. And that puts huge populations, people who have never even heard of this disease, at risk.
Okay, so if we know what the virus is and we know how it spreads, the solution should be simple, right? A vaccine. And here's the twist. There is one, but it's far from a silver bullet. In fact, what we're looking at is a real scientific conundrum.
Since way back in 1990, a vaccine has been available and given to people in high-risk groups. Folks like forest workers and farmers who are out there all the time. On the surface, that sounds like great news, right? Problem solved. But it's a lot more complicated than that.
So here's the first major snag, the vaccine's effectiveness. After you get the first 2 shots, it's only about 62% effective. To get it up to a more respectable 83%, you need a booster. And even then, they recommend you get more boosters every year for up to 5 years. You can see how trying to get that level of protection across a whole population is a huge challenge.
Which brings us right to the heart of the matter. If we've had a vaccine for more than 30 years, why is monkey fever still making people sick and even killing them? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating, but it's also incredibly challenging.
See, scientists trying to make a better vaccine are hitting three massive roadblocks. First, there's a dangerous possibility called antibody-dependent enhancement, or ADE. Second, KFDV is really similar to other common viruses in its family. And third, it's really hard to find a lab animal that gets sick in the same way humans do. Let's break those down.
Okay, antibody-dependent enhancement, or ADE. This concept is a little wild and kind of scary. Basically, sometimes antibodies you have, maybe from a vaccine or a past infection, don't actually kill a new virus. Instead, they act like a Trojan horse. They grab onto the virus and accidentally help it sneak into your immune cells more easily. The result? The disease can become way, way worse. This risk is a huge deal, and it's why scientists have to be extremely careful when developing any new vaccine for this family of viruses.
So, with all of these huge challenges, where do we go from here? Well, the good news is the scientific community isn't giving up. They're working on a totally new, multi-layered defense against KFDV and other threats just like it.
The big idea now is that we can't just think about human medicine. The real path forward is what's called a One Health approach. This means getting veterinarians, ecologists, and public health officials all in the same room, working together. It's about fighting the disease in the animals, in the environment, and in people, all at the same time.
And on the vaccine front, there's a ton of hope with next-gen technologies. Scientists are exploring things like viral vector vaccines, kind of like some of the COVID shots, that use a safe virus to teach our immune system what KFDV looks like. They're also looking at mRNA and DNA platforms, which are super fast and adaptable. And then there are subunit vaccines, which use just tiny, specific pieces of the virus to get a really targeted immune response, hopefully dodging that whole ADE risk altogether.
And that kind of leaves us with one last, much bigger question. The story of monkey fever isn't really just about one virus in one forest. It's a preview of a much larger challenge we're all facing. As we push deeper and deeper into natural habitats, we're going to bump into more of these hidden viruses. So the real question is, how do we get ready? And how do we stay one step ahead of the next threat that nature might have waiting for us?